Welcome back to Next Level Contractor. Today we are going to be covering one of the most confusing parts of getting your Florida license, the experience requirements, whether you're going for your Division 1 license, your Division 2, or your electrical license. We're going to break it down so you know exactly what the state is looking for. So today we have Andrew Gertz. He's helped hundreds of contractors through this process. So Andrew, can you tell me a little about yourself and how you can help people?
Yes, sir. Happy Monday to you, Noah. Thank you for having me. So my name's Andrew, General Manager, One Exam Prep. I've been in the industry since 2018. I've worked in all aspects of the contractor licensing prep industry, I would say. And the experience section on those applications, by far and away, once the tests are done, it's the most confusing part. There's a lot of misconceptions about what the state's looking for, right? Things you need, things you don't need. And it's snag number one when it's an application submitted as far as the wording and the proving of the experience to avoid that deficiency. And also, when you have that mustard seed of an idea to become a contractor, it's usually the biggest thing you want to get clear before you invest all of that time and energy into pursuing the license to find out at the end it was all for naught. So really looking forward today to get some information out there because we know the state doesn't make it very obvious in what they provide on their website.
Absolutely. Great. Okay. Well, we're excited. I know that everybody wants these answers that we're gonna go through some questions in rapid fire so people can get right to the point of what they need. So why don't we just get started? I'm going to pop the question up on the screen so that will help you as we're going through this process. So let's first, can you walk us through what kind of experience the state's looking for in those Division 1 license applications? And first, do you mind explaining what Division 1 means?
Absolutely. So Division One in Florida, that would be a builder's license, so to speak, right? There's three levels of builder in Florida. There's a residential builder, exactly how it sounds, single family homes, duplexes. Then there's what's called a building contractor. You can do everything a residential builder can do. You can also work commercial properties up to 3 stories in height. So your strip malls, your quick marts, things of that nature. And then there's the general contractor, which in Florida is the top tier of builder. You're unlimited in the size of scope of the structure, right? So, in layman's terms, they're all considered, you're a general contractor in terms of the scope of your license, so to speak. But as far as the state's concerned, residential builder, building contractor, general contractor. As far as the experience, they have a few things in common across the three of them. The first one is the state wants to see 4 years as or under a licensed builder, right? That experience can be anywhere in the world. And the way they want to see that experience is you're actually on the application, you're going to list the specific projects you worked on over those 4 years. Okay. Now, for the different levels of builder, the state has different requirements for projects that they must see for them to approve you for the license. For example, residential builder. Of those 4 years of projects you're showing to the state, they're looking for two, at least two of them have to be either ground up new construction or renovations of at least 60% of the structure. For a building contractor, of those 4 years of projects you're going to be showing the state, at two of them, they're looking for one that's either ground up new construction, residential or commercial. That project could also be renovation of at least 60% of the structure, residential or commercial. In addition to that, they are also looking for a commercial project, new construction, minimum of 20,000 habitable square feet, right? So parking lots, they don't add to that. They're looking for 20,000 square foot in the structure. And then general contractor, they're looking for that 20,000 square foot commercial project, new construction. They're also looking for new construction, a building 4 stories or higher, commercial building 4 stories or higher.
Very great. Okay. So let's talk about the bachelor degree. How does that play into your experience and how does that help?
So it helps tremendously, Noah. So as I just mentioned, the state wants to see 4 years of experience. Well, if you have bachelor's degree, let's say bachelor's degree business management, that will offset 3 of those 4 years. So still have to show us the state a year of projects, right? Depending on the level of builder you're going for, the state's still going to want to see those two specific ones I just mentioned, but the bachelor's degree will count for 3 years of experience.
All right. Now, let's talk about a little bit unique. What if you have a degree in architecture or construction management? And I know the GPA at 3.0 or higher, how does that change the process?
It helps you out tremendously. Uh, Degree in architecture or construction management, GPA 3.0 or higher. That's a key point. GPA's got to be 3.0 or higher. Not only will it count of 3 years experience towards that experience section on your application, you'll also be exempt from the trade exams. Okay. For those who aren't familiar, GC, general contractor, BC, building contractor, RC, residential contractor, there's 3 tests you have to take. Everybody has to do business finance exam, open book, multiple choice, 120 questions, 6.5 hours. Okay. And 5 reference books you have with you on that one. Then most folks will have to take 2 trade exams: project management, contract administration. Again, open book, multiple choice, but 14 books this time. It's about 50 pounds of books, those 2 exams. So if you have degree, architecture, construction management, GPA 3.0 or higher, you only have to take business finance exam, and that degree gets you 3 years of experience on the application.
Wow, that's a big deal. Okay. Can you give us some examples of projects that are going to qualify as experience? Because I know this is a really common question we get in our applications department. So can you give us a couple of examples that might help some people?
Absolutely. So for the building contractor licenses, Division One, residential builder or GC, they want to see structural experience, right? If you were building a fence or painting a house, right? That's not the experience they're looking for. They're looking for structural experience. So support beams, columns, right? The framing, right? That's what they're looking for. Laying the foundation slab, that's what they're looking for. Additionally, to qualify as experience, you must have performed the job as or under a licensed contractor, right? So if you pour the slab on a project, but there was no licensed contractor overseeing the job, then if you put that on your application, the work was done in Florida. You're essentially admitting to a crime, right? On a official government document, right? So don't do that. And also, it wouldn't count as experience because you weren't under the supervision of a licensed contractor. So they're looking for structural experience as or under a licensed contractor.
Got it. Okay. You touched on this all already, but the 3 levels, Division One builder, give us a couple of specifics on this.
Right. So as we did touch on it a little bit already, the 3 levels of builder: residential contractor, right? That's, don't think of that as like the basic one, right? That's still an incredible license to have. It opens up a lot of opportunities. But if we're speaking hierarchically, it would be the lowest tier, right? Because you're limited to that residential construction.
Mhm.
Um, but they're looking for 2 projects, either ground up new construction or renovations of at least 60% of the structure, right? And again, they're not looking oh, you painted you painted the interior, or you painted the exterior, or you changed some windows. That's really not what they're looking for. They want to see that structural experience, renovation or ground up new construction. The middle tier, building contractor, right? Now you can do all that residential work. You can also go commercial up to 3 stories in height. The 2 projects they're looking for there are, again, either ground up new construction or renovation of at least 60% of the structure. And for building contractor, that can be residential or commercial structure. In addition to that, they want to see one other project, commercial project, at least 20,000 habitable square feet, right? That's the key that throws a lot of people off, because they're not counting the parking lot, they're not counting sidewalks, or, I've had people, well, does the tennis courts count and things of this nature? No, we're talking habitable square feet, right? Then for general contractor, they want to see that 20,000 square foot project, and they also want to see a project 4 stories or higher, commercial project. And the exact wording from the state, I haven't mentioned this yet, I should have, is significant responsibility for the successful performance and completion of, on all those projects.
Got it. Common question: W-2s, are they needed to prove experience?
They are not. They are not. Division one license, you do not need W-2s to prove experience. Okay. It's essentially a worksheet you're filling out. They want project dates, name of the company you worked for, name of the license holder at their company at that company, their license number, right? Contact information, your role and responsibility on the project.
Right. I think that's what this question is referring to is, what exactly is included in that experience verification? How is the state going to verify the information that you're providing?
So that's a great question, right? The state, at the very least, you got to expect them. They're going to check the license number you give them for the contractor you were working under. Was this license number active? Was it qualifying this company at the time you say you were working there, right? Now, the state can go further than that. The state can call the company, ask if anyone's heard of you, things like that. So I can't guarantee exactly what the state is going to do, but I will say this: honesty is the best policy, right? This isn't something. This is a serious matter. Filling out this paperwork, submitting this paperwork, right?
Mhm.
It's not something. It's not a game. It's not something to take lightly. Honesty is definitely the best policy on it, although it is you can't guarantee how many steps the state is going to take to verify what you're reporting, right? But at the end of the day, shouldn't be an issue, because if you put it on there, it should be true and factual anyway, right?
Right. Okay. Well, first, so great. Thank you for that's
Mhm.
everything that wraps up Division One. Before we move on to Division Two, I just want to remind everybody that we scrolling at the bottom of the screen, you can visit oneexamprep.com or call 954-280-7515 to reach Andrew directly about any questions related to Florida or any type of contractor license. So let's jump right into Division Two. Tell us, what is Division Two according to the state, and how does the experience requirement differ for these licenses?
So the easiest way to say what Division Two is it's everything that's not Division One, right? So kind of think like building, right? Anything where, again, the layman's term, general contractor, right? So that's Division One, right? Then Division Two is everything else, all the other trades except electrical, right? So your roofing, your plumbing, your HVAC, right? Your specialty structure, the screen enclosures around the pools, right?
Mhm.
Your glass and glazing, your windows and doors, right? Everything that's not Division One, kind of that general contractor tier, and then everything that's not electrical, that's Division Two, right?
Right. Okay.
So as
Got it.
far as the experience requirements, it's similar to Division One, but a little bit different. Where, if you remember from Division One, we're listing specific projects, right? The state wants to see every single project we worked on over a 4-year period, unless we are offsetting with college degree or military experience, then 1 year period, or potentially a little more if you're using associates over bachelor's degree. But I digress. Division two, they want to see the 4 years, but it's not specific projects. They just want to know company you work for, license holder at the company, their license number, contact information, dates you worked there, and your general job duties and responsibilities. So they'll want to see 4 years, one as a supervisor. And again, very similar to Division One, military service, college degree can offset up to 3 of those 4 years experience.
Got it. So that bachelor's degree, if I have a bachelor's degree, that's going to count towards, you said, 3 years. Is that right?
Yep, 3 years for Division Two, just like Division One.
That's a
So you
big
would have to
deal.
show, yep, yep,
Okay.
you'd have to show 1 year as a supervisor. In that
Okay.
case.
Got it. Okay. Do I need a list of specific projects, or is it general employment history enough in this case?
So Division Two, general employment history. As long as it was as or under a licensed contractor. I keep saying as or under because Florida, nobody actually from here, right? We get a lot of folks. They come in from New York, Georgia, right? They were
Right.
since fully legal to perform that work in the state they're coming from. In that case, then the experience could be under themselves, right, so to speak, from wherever they're coming from.
Right. Okay. Got it. So if I have experience under a GC, when is that acceptable and when isn't it acceptable?
So for a number of Division two licenses, they will accept the experience under the GC as long as your roles and responsibilities under the GC match the Division two license, right? For
Hmm.
example, let's say you're windows and door guy or gal, right? If all your experience under the GC was flooring or tile, right? That's not windows and door experience. So keep that in mind. But there are a number of licenses that the GC, your experience can be other, and there are many that can't be under a GC. You have to be under a license holder specific to that trade. For example, ones that can be under a GC, Division two licenses where your experience can be under a GC, would be things like gypsum, glass and glazing, industrial facilities, marine contractor, specialty structure, and underground utility, right? You
Hmm.
can be under a GC and show that experience. Now, examples of some that do not are HVAC, mechanical. Gotta be under licensed HVAC, gotta be under mechanical. They won't accept that from under a GC. Um, gas line, right? Irrigation,
Hmm.
plumbing, pollutant storage, right? So these are all things where if you're looking to get licensed in that scope of work, you would have had to have been under someone licensed specifically to that scope.
Got it. Okay. Great. Well, that's Division Two. We're going to move on to electrical licenses. And again, just a reminder: give if you have any questions about any of this, you can give Andrew a call directly. The phone number's at the bottom of the screen: 954-280-7515. Okay, electrical licenses requires more experience than others. So tell us about that baseline requirement.
So Division one, Division two, we were at 4 years. Electrical, now we're at six, right? So two jumping up 2 years in experience. They want to see 6 years of experience. Again, it's as or under licensed electrician, right? Important item of note for the Florida state license, there's no journeyman requirement. There's no requirement for you to hold a journeyman's card for X amount of time before you go for state license. Now, county competency level, most likely in the majority of counties I'm aware of, yes, there is that requirement. But for the state license, there is not that journeyman card requirement for X amount of years. They want to see 6 years as are under a licensed contractor, a licensed electrical contractor.
Okay, and talk about documentation that's required for the state.
Right. So that's very important on electrical. Okay. Electrical, they're not just taking your word for it like they were Division one, Division two. You gotta show the receipts for electrical. They want to see your W-2, your Schedule C, or your K-1, and it's got to match your experience section, right? So if you tell them you were working for XYZ electrical contracting company, right? And your W-2 is for ABC electrical contracting company, and the contractor whose license number you claim to have been working under is for the XYZ company, but your W-2 is ABC, they don't match, it's not going to go through.
All right. Next question. How does relevant degrees such as electrical engineering actually affect the electrical application?
So similar to Division one, Division two, bachelor's degree, it'll offset 3 of those 6 years of experience. Now, dissimilar to Division one, Division two, there is no trade exam exemption for the electrical. You're going to have to take both exams. Now, if you're a licensed electrical engineer for 3 years, that can count towards the experience also. But there is no exam exemption with any type of degree for electrical contractor license.
Got it. Okay. Okay, now we're going to go on to some other questions that are just general questions about the application for any of these licenses. So, can you talk about common mistakes you're seeing applicants make when they're trying to prove experience?
Absolutely. So the first one we already kind of touched on, right? They're applying for windows and door license and they're telling them about fences they built, right? The state's only concerned with, the scope of work to which the license you're applying, right? Secondly, would be in the wording of the experience itself. On any one of these applications, no matter which one, the state tells you you need experience in these areas. So when you're wording your experience, if you don't include the areas the state's telling you you need, right, then that's a deficiency letter from the state you'll have to clean up down the road, right? Another real common one is omitting information, right? People try to fill it out themselves, and oh, I don't know their license number, so they just guess, right? Or they go to the state's database to find the license number, and they use the contractor's individual license number, not the license number issued for qualifying the company, right? Things like that, like detail things, you know what I mean? Which is why it's very beneficial, and I always recommend that this application is a means to the end, right? It's a means to increasing that earning ceiling, oftentimes exponentially in many cases, right? So work with an expert, someone who knows exactly what the state's looking for, how to word that experience, right? Make sure they're using the right license numbers, right? The right the right wording in the experience section. And we oftentimes know that corporate structure can be confusing, right? So let's say you're working for an electrical company, you know the electrical company by one name, right? But your pay stubs, your W-2 and parents company name, right? Now all that stuff has to match on electrical application. I really advise to work with an expert who's been down that road before, can guide you down the path, make sure everything's perfect the first time.
Got it. So what happens? You mentioned if you put in the wrong contractor's license number, what happens if you don't remember that license number?
Right. So good thing. The state's database, it's available myfloridalicense.com. If you know the name of the company, right, you can search and you can find the license number that way. Public information doesn't cost a thing.
All right. Now, what happens if that contractor's license is not active anymore?
It's fine. It's fine. It's not a problem as long as it was active when you were working for them, right? Now, if it was inactive when you were working for them, then that's a problem, right? Because
Right.
now you're doing work that requires a license, and there's no license holder supervising it. So as long as it
Right.
was active when you were working under their supervision, no problem.
Okay. Let's talk about some. We have a lot of clients that come from other countries. Talk about how international experience or out of state counts.
So out of state's pretty simple, right? As long as wherever the work was being performed in the United States, right? As long as it was performed legally, then you're good to go. For example, we know some municipalities, some states, they don't have licensing like Florida for certain things. So that's fine, but as long as the work was performed legally where you're saying it was performed, right? And then for states that do require licensing, then have got to be as or under a licensed contractor again. But Florida will accept experience from anywhere in the United States, as well as international, anywhere in the world. But there's a few asterisks, right, for the international experience. So what the state is going to want to see for the international experience, right, is the same thing that you would show them for the domestic experience, but they're also going to want a letter from an architect or building official, all right, who is familiar with your work, right, can confirm your work in that country. Additionally, I'll add about the international experience when we're talking international college degrees. The state will accept those also. Florida will accept those also. However, they have to be translated and equivocated into English, right? Many countries, they don't use the same grading metrics as the US, our grade point average, 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, right? So there are services out there. One Exam Prep is one of them that will translate and equivocate your degree into English. So if that degree equivocates, excuse me, to a 3.0 or higher, you would still have that exam exemption for the Division One, Division Two licenses if we're talking construction management architecture degree. Yes.
Okay. Okay. We run into this a lot. You're getting close, but what happens if you don't yet have those full 4 years of experience? What can you do?
Well, the first thing is college or military, right? A lot of people aren't aware that college or military will offset some of those years experience, right? So that's stone to overturn number one, right? Do you have a 4-year degree? Did you serve in the military? Okay. Beyond that, there's a couple different routes to go. Your exam scores are good for 4 years, right? So let's say, you have 2.5 years experience, right? A lot of folks, they're like, I'm ready to take these exams now, right? They just want to get it done. They understand that every year the books change, the books only get more expensive, right? The tests, they only add books, they never really take books away. So they only get more difficult, right? So they just want to get them done, get them out of the way. Then the moment they hit that experience threshold, these are folks that won't spend a day as a non-licensed individual longer than they have to, because the moment they hit that threshold, they submit that application, they get their license, right? So that's one option, right? Now a lot of folks will say, well, how do I get that experience, right? I'm getting all these jobs, but I don't have a way to complete them. Well, in that case, you're going to want to find a licensed contractor who can partner with you, essentially, right? They would supervise the job in theory, they would oversee the job, right? But they would bring you on as type of a project manager, right? So you're getting that experience under their license as you bring them the jobs.
Okay, got it. So, all right. Well, that was kind of wrapped up our questions for today regarding Florida license applications and everything. And you really did a great job explaining to everybody what the requirements are, how to deal with the common questions they have to deal with. If you want to know more about anything related to Florida contractor licenses or any state licenses, we covered that at One Exam Prep. Andrew is the go-to guy for that. His contact information is at the bottom, 954-280-7515, or you can email him at andrew@oneexamprep.com. And please check out the channel for more great tips. And we cover many different licenses, many different requirements. Our goal at this channel is to help you not only to get licensed, but actually get from $0 to $5 million in revenue as quickly as possible, because that's that barrier that gets you to that next level as a contractor. And getting that contractor's license is the fastest way to creating wealth in this country. So check out this channel. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us, and we really appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you so much for your time, Noah, and I hope I was helpful.
Absolutely. Everybody take care.